Bram Stoker introduced the term undead in Dracula. The concept of reanimated corpses is one of the oldest tropes in fiction, from the Draugr in Norse mythology to that hippie my grandma decorates her house with. There's an equally long history of people obsessing over the end of the world. What if the world ended because a bunch of reanimated corpses have risen to feast upon the flesh of the living? But who was the first to combine this chocolate and peanut butter? Sci-fi author Richard Matheson looked at Dracula with Bela Lugosi and thought, if one vampire was scary, what if the whole world had become vampires? With this concept, he wrote I Am Legend. This book is where it all began. A lone survivor in a world of ghouls killed and resurrected by a plague. The first zombie apocalypse. There have been 3 films based on this book. The Last Man on Earth in 1964, Omega Man in 1971, and the eponymous film from 2007. I'm not going to do a comparison of all 3 films in the book. They're all so different that it would have to be its own video. We're going to look at The Last Man on Earth. It's the most accurate to the book and the one that is the most important to the genre. Obviously, Night of the Living Dead is the most influential zombie movie ever made, but George Romero said The Last Man on Earth was one of his main inspirations. This is the first contemporary zombie movie. The screenplay was actually written by the book's author, Richard Matheson, credited as Logan Swanson. The book rights were purchased with the intent of the film being produced by the iconic studio Hammer, but British censors wouldn't allow it to be made. It was passed around and at one point was in the hands of Metropolis director Fritz Lang before Sidney Salco and Ubaldo Ragogna. Then it was finally made with a super low budget in Italy with a mostly Italian cast. The film opens with lengthy shots of the sun rising over a city with ominous music. With every cut of the camera, we're shown more and more detail, with empty streets and abandoned cars progressing to dead bodies scattered everywhere. It follows this path of bodies to a sleeping scientist named Robert Morgan. He's played by horror legend Vincent Price, and his shoulders must have been really sore after this movie because he carries the whole damn thing. A lesser actor would not have been able to pull this off, basically being the sole character for most of it. His excellent narration is also essential to this movie.
December 1965. Is that all it has been since I inherited the world? Only 3 years. Seems like 100 million.
Robert has survived this long due to his meticulous nature. Every day he repeats the same tasks. Part of this is replacing his defenses against the vampires. I bet you think it's like a spike pit or a flamethrower, maybe something like Bill's traps in The Last of Us, but nah. It's a mirror and a cross, because even though they're infected with a virus, they have generic vampire weaknesses. I bet he doesn't even need all this shit since they probably can't come in without being invited.
No, I wasn't invited. No!
He broadcasts a radio signal every morning just in case anybody is out there. We see later on how desperate he is for any kind of contact with another living thing. He's completely focused on survival, and he's so tightly wound that it won't take much to make him snap. He begins planning out the other part of his daily missions. See, in the other 2 versions, Robert is scared shitless of running into the vampires. This dude ain't afraid of any damn vampires. He hates them and he's taking them out one by one while they sleep in the day. He also has to get rid of the corpses outside his house.
More of them for the pit. Every day there are more of them. They live off the weak ones and...
He just loads them into his car to dispose of them.
This fucking sucker in the dude, eh?
I kinda love the way that he emphasizes how he's out of gas.
I'm out of gas. Right now, I'm out of gas.
The gas isn't just for the car, though. He needs it to fuel this gigantic-ass burn pit that's continuously on fire. This is where he gets rid of the dead. Seems like kind of a waste to keep this thing going when he has to conserve resources. He goes into this store to grab supplies, and it's actually kind of weird seeing one of these movies where the shelves aren't completely barren. The empty, ransacked grocery store is practically an icon of apocalypse movies. He uses a generator to keep the freezer running, but if he comes here so frequently, why does he have to push all these shopping carts away? I like to think that the vampires did this to try to stop him.
Did the shopping cart blockade work?
No, sir. He made it through.
Damn it.
Also, if you thought he was a greedy boy with that gas, watch him take all this garlic. Dude, I thought you were trying to ration this stuff. He says he's gotta make it last, but he's taking it like he's gonna start the Wario diet. Finally, we see him start hunting vampires. He's going door to door as a steak salesman, and the payment is their life. But, like, these are looking less vampire-y and more like generic crackheads. I mean, the book does take place in Los Angeles, so maybe they are just on drugs. Whoa, watch out there, Vinny. You almost made me believe there was something on the other side of that steak. He returns home and prepares for the night. He replaces the garlic and puts on some jazz. It's a well-known fact that vampires can't stand alternative time signatures.
What's he doing now?
He's playing some jazz.
Fuck.
Then the horde comes. They're too weak to break in and he tries to ignore them. He's just completely done with their shit and reacts to them like they're a mild annoyance. He falls asleep, but he's shocked awake by a nightmare.
I can't see!
His daily routine that's kept him alive is finally too much. The years have chipped away at his sanity and he angrily drives off. He goes to a church he keeps locked up. He lights some candles and he starts talking to the coffin that has his wife in it. I'm pretty sure there's a Typo Negative song about this. But he stays so long that he falls asleep. Robert took a really long-ass nap because now it's night and he has to fight against the vampires to get home. Individually they're pretty weak and he can just push past them, but the horde assembling outside his house is enough to be a threat. He could have just, ran over them with his car or drove to another place to hide. The whole reason they're at his house is because they think he's inside, so it's not like they'd know to look for him somewhere else. Also, they're repelled by the cross. Why didn't he just stay in the church? Instead, Robert uses the only defense he has. A mirror. Oh no! I'm so ugly! Why didn't anyone tell me? Robert fights his way inside. There, he watches film reels of his life before the virus and has a breakdown. Yeah, we've all been there, looking back on the good times and laughing like a maniac. This all cues a PTSD flashback to his daughter's birthday party.
Yes? Oh no, my makeup, my hair.
Yeah, that's all the character traits you get as a woman in an old movie.
Uncle Ben! Uncle Ben!
Sorry, little girl, but Uncle Ben has to go die to teach Spider-Man responsibility. If Ben looks familiar, it's because he's one of the vampires trying to kill Robert in the future. Ben shows Robert a newspaper about the virus. They're studying it in their lab, and Robert doesn't think it'll become a global threat. Boy, does that make me nostalgic for 2019. Some time passes and the virus has spread. Robert's daughter is infected. They got these, curtains draped over her. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to accomplish.
Maybe you better not send her to school today.
Dude, she's got that virus that's killing everybody, and her missing a day of school gets a soft maybe? He's supposed to be this brilliant microbiologist. If these are the precautions that he and all the other scientists are taking, no wonder this world is fucked. At the lab, they're continuing and failing to create a vaccine. Ben brings up rumors of the dead coming back to life, and that's why bodies are being taken to a burn pit in truckloads, but Robert still doesn't believe him.
Ben, it's as simple as this. An unknown germ is being blown around the world. It's highly contagious and it's reached plague proportions.
And you don't believe some of the dead have come back?
Later at home, his daughter's condition has worsened and she's gone blind. She already missed one day of school, so her ass better be on that bus tomorrow. Also, do you get it? Blind. Like a bat. Robert's wife wants to call a doctor, but he tells her not to, because they're just gonna chuck her in the fire pit.
Chuck her in there.
Also, Robert is a doctor, so that's kinda redundant. Robert returns to his lab, and most of his colleagues were too afraid to come in. Any hope for a vaccine is dwindling. Then he goes home and finds out that his daughter died and her body was taken. Robert arrives at the same burn pit he would keep going in the future to see his daughter tossed in. Goodbye, little girl. I don't remember if they gave you a name. Finally, his wife succumbs too. I guess that mosquito net they were using to quarantine their kid didn't work. He won't let them take her to the pit, so he buries her out in a field. He goes home and somebody tries to open the door. It's his zombie wife. I started doing crack. We don't see what he does, but it's presumed he has to kill her. Back in the future, Robert wakes up to find the vampires destroyed his car. Every 7 days, the Die player knows this feeling, leaving your base to check the damage after a blood moon horde. After replacing his car, he sees a dirty stray dog. This dog is the first non-vampire thing he's seen in 3 years, so he chases it. While looking for the dog, he finds vampires killed by spears. Somebody else is out there. Back at his house, he's still thinking about what the spear implies when the dog comes back. It's injured and he bandages it up. Then he tells the dog about all the fun shit they're gonna do together. Robert can't help himself, though. He checks the dog's saliva under a microscope and it's infected. You can guess what he does next.
Has Agent Snuffles infiltrated Robert's lair?
Yes, sir. He's fully gained Robert's trust. I can read lips and he says he's going to give him a steak.
Oh, that's good. Snuffles does love a good filet mignon.
Wait. Oh god! That's not what he meant at all! Agent Snuffles is dead, sir. Bro, that is so cold. I'm not trying to compare the different versions, but in the 2007 movie, he kills the dog because it became aggressive. It was also a big-ass German shepherd that would have ripped them apart if it had the chance. This little dude just wanted some pets and maybe a bowl of blood to satisfy his vampiric cravings. While he's burying the dog, a woman is aimlessly walking around and runs when she sees him. He runs after her, shouting that he won't hurt her, but I think sprinting away from a dude burying a body bag is reasonable. He grabs her and she doesn't fight back because, you know, she's a woman in a black and white movie. He convinces her that he isn't a vampire.
I couldn't be out here in the daylight if I was one of them. You know that they can't come out until sundown. Do you want to come with me or do you want to face them?
In a shocking lapse of judgment, she goes with this crazy man back to his house. She tells him her name is Ruth. Robert isn't taking any chances and waves some garlic in front of her. Ruth freaks out, but it's not because she's infected.
I've had a sensitive stomach all my life.
Robert apologizes and makes them dinner. Ruth is still afraid of the vampires, but Robert is completely desensitized to them. He says if they were smart enough to get in, they would have figured out how to by now.
Hear that? That's Ben Cortman. He was my friend.
Your friend?
He was like a kid brother. If I could find him and destroy him.
But you said he was your friend.
When I find him, I'll drive a stake through him just like all the others.
Dude, this guy is stone cold. Robert then explains why he thinks he's immune.
Or perhaps it's because a long time ago when I worked in Panama, I was bitten in my sleep by a bat. My theory is that the bat had previously acquired the vampire germ. By the time it entered my blood, it had been strained and weakened by the bat system. As a result, I have immunity.
Ruth sneaks away and suddenly becomes sick. Robert catches her trying to inject herself with something. Man, I guess everybody really is on drugs. She confirms Robert's suspicions. She is infected. That injection is a vaccine that suppresses the virus and keeps her from becoming one of the mindless ghouls. There's a whole group of others like her, and they sent Ruth to see if Robert had any useful information on the disease. He actually knows less than they do, and then Ruth drops a bomb on him.
Many of the people you destroyed were still alive. Many of them were loved ones of the people in my group.
I didn't know.
Robert is the monster. Yeah, no shit. The others are trying to rebuild society. Meanwhile, Robert was staking the infected indiscriminately and didn't know he was also killing people that were still alive. He is the boogeyman in this new world. Ruth isn't as merciless as Robert and warns him that her group are coming to kill him. She passes out without the vaccine, and Robert uses this opportunity to run an experiment. He uses his own blood to pass his immunity to Ruth and cure her. Thank God they were the same blood type, or his body count would have went up again. Okay, I've never seen somebody try to snort garlic before. Maybe the minced or the powder would have been a little bit easier. The group that sent Ruth finally arrives. They're packing heat and quickly dispose of the vampires that have been plaguing Robert. They shoot at Ben and, I don't know, I guess the noise startled him and he crapped his pants. Whatever happened to him, he definitely wasn't shot, but I give that roof tumble 10 points. Then they chase after Robert. Robert goes into a police station and fires back as the infected close in on him. He raids an armory and only takes smoke bombs. Why didn't he take any of the guns? Actually, why didn't he clean this place out before? He could have used all this stuff to defend himself. All those vampires outside his house driving him insane for years could have been dealt with a long time ago. That smoke ain't stopping shit and Robert is shot. They have him cornered in a church. I guess that guilt he had over accidentally killing these dudes is gone and he delivers his final words.
You freaks! All of you. All of you freaks! Mutations!
He's hit with a spear and Ruth comforts him in his final moments. The film ends with Ruth leaving his body as a baby cries. Despite its title as the first, this is a flawed movie. It's held back by its budget and some pretty terrible dubbing. The pacing is off and the flashbacks in the middle should have been broken up a bit more throughout the movie. As it is, it just completely stops the plot's flow. It's slow, cheesy, and kinda boring. It isn't as action-oriented as the other adaptations. All of these quirks do create a unique atmosphere, though. It feels kinda like a feature-length episode of The Twilight Zone, which is fitting since Richard Matheson did write for that series. The Last Man on Earth is clunky and cheap, but worth watching at least once, just for Vincent Price. I'll definitely talk about more horror movies in the future. Horror movies is like one of my main personality traits. If you have a suggestion for one, leave it in the comments. If you liked the video, you can subscribe and see more, and if you didn't like the video, you should also subscribe because your hatred fuels me.